Hey guys, so I just saw the 4 hours Zack Snyder Justice League. Um, I saw the original one last night, the Josh Whedon, the Josh Justice League one. And I haven't seen that since 2017. I think me and my wife went to see it in theaters when it came out. Um, and you know what? For some reason, I always felt like I hated the first Justice League, the version of Josh Whedon that Josh Whedon did. But when I saw it again, I was like, it's not a bad movie. Um, but my expectations for movies like that are always usually low anyway. I don't go into a Marvel or a comic book movie and expect my life to be changed coming out of it. I'm not one of those fans. In fact, I'm going to talk about being a fan of comic books and comic book movies, and there's a big difference between the two things. But Justice League, Zack Snyder's cut, it's 4 hours long. I'll give you guys a tip right now, right? It's basically like four sections of that movie. The last hour or last 40 minutes is just post credit kind of scenes mashed together. And it's kind of stuff you've seen before. There's maybe 2 or 3 surprise scenes. But the last 40 minutes of the movie, if you don't care about post credit scenes, for movies that most likely won't come out because Ben Affleck is not involved in the Batman role anymore. And I don't believe Zack Snyder is making any type of these movies from Warner Brothers, which I think still owns the intellectual property for these movies as a whole. So I don't think Zack Snyder will be making movies, and I don't think Ben Affleck will be Batman in future movies like this. And these post-credit scenes for the Justice League movie kind of had it come out like in 2017, you would have seen post credits for maybe upcoming projects that would have made sense with Ben Affleck being Batman and Clark, Henry Cavill coming back as Superman. I don't believe any of them are really involved in that anymore to the regards to like back in 2017 the way they were back then. So the last 40-minute chunk of it is all post credits for stuff we probably wouldn't even see made. I could be wrong on that. A lot of people are wrong on the Snyder cut being made. So that's fine. So if you want to like just save your time, don't look at it as a 4-hour movie. Just forget about the last 40 minutes. You can watch the last 40 minutes anytime. The last 40 minutes is just post-credit scenes that does not have anything to do with the chunk of this movie. The movie ends right basically where it ends in the first version of Justice League. It ends much better. I like the way this ended. One point I want to make, I really, really like the Darkseid character. As a kid growing up, I didn't really read a lot of DC comics. I was more of a Marvel comic books, Spider-Man being one of my favorite comics. X-Men, the second. I did like Batman, and I did like Superman comics, and I do have a few of those in my collections, but I didn't follow the timeline of Batman and Superman. Like, I wasn't a big fan of it. I was aware of the comic books. I had friends, we traded comic books, I read some of their stories, I read some of my Marvel stories, and that was it. I didn't study it or in any detail. So I don't know, and the funny thing, as a result of that, I'm not familiar with the DC world villains. I didn't know who Darkseid was, I didn't know who Steppenwolf was, going into any of these movies. But I'm really intrigued by the Darkseid character. I love that character. Now, he does, from watching the Marvel, my wife is a big Marvel movie fan, we've seen all the Infinity Wars. He does come off, I'm gonna admit, I don't know, no one's saying this, but Darkseid is literally like a DC version of Thanos. The same motivations, same almost powers in a way, but Darkseid, I believe, is more powerful than Thanos. But it's basically a DC version of Thanos. If there's a better description of that, I don't believe there is one, but that's who Darkseid is. But as a result, I was kind of intrigued with his character. Steppenwolf we've seen through the first version of this movie, and I think this version of Steppenwolf is better, but it's chasing the MacGuffin, the 3 mother boxes. He has to get those boxes. His motivation for getting the boxes is a little bit more detailed now. But overall, it's a good movie. I felt even at the time that the length of this, it's not 4 hours. I don't know, people stop saying it's 4 hours. The last 40 minutes is post credits. Is basically 3.5 hours at best for this version of the Zack Snyder's version. But I still feel he could have snipped off maybe an extra 30 minutes of this movie. There's a lot of scenes when Superman comes back with Lois Lane that's dragged out. I felt like that part of the story could have been chopped up a bit more. My favorite part of this version of it was the Amazons with Wonder Woman's family and her, her tribe, the thing with Amazonians. That was really cool. When they versus Steppenwolf, I wanted to see more of that. And I think the best of Zack Snyder's directing came out of that. It kind of reminded me of 300, and that was really good to see that fleshed out in more detail. I thought the cyborg stuff could have been. I got what they're doing. I see his relevance to the storyline here, but I felt like a lot of his backstory could have been chopped up. I think they did one scene where he helps a kid who lost her parents or lost her house or her parents lost their jobs. He helps her pass an exam by hacking into the computer system and changing her grades. And that's like a 10 minute flashback scene, only to show that Cyborg as a person, Victor, as a person, is a good guy and he wants to help less fortunate people than himself. I don't think that was not necessary. You could have cut that out and we still would have known who Victor was based on a relationship with his dad that we see fleshed out throughout the movie. Speed, the Flash, Barry, they gave him a bit more, and I felt you could have cut some of that out, but I liked it. I mean, it was, it kind of showed him also as a good guy. And someone pointed out that a lot of these scenes, the reason the movie's stretched out like this is because they don't have movies for these individual characters. But I feel like a lot of people going into this will be looking at it casually, or are comic book fans that know who these characters are already. That's the problem with a lot of these movies, like the Spider-Mans. It always starts with Uncle Ben dying. Batman, it always starts with his parents dying. We're tired of seeing origins, right? A lot of these movies waste like a good 30 minutes of the beginning of the movie to show origins, which we already know. If you're a Spider-Man fan, you already know who he's about. If you go into this casually, you'll be happy just to know Spider-Man is shooting webs and fighting crooks. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know how he became Spider-Man. Stop doing that. And I think a lot of what we see in this movie is kind of like origins of these characters. I'm glad they didn't do it with Batman again for this. So I kind of liked it overall. It could have, like I said, chopped down. It's basically like a 2-hour and 40-minute movie. I'm surprised Zack didn't clean it up more. I also noticed, I think there's a cameo of Zack Snyder in a coffee shop when Lois Lane is getting coffee to go look at the Memorial of Superman. Now, I'll end the video here. The problem with these movies, and I think the DC Universe, is that you have the main character, Superman. The problem with a Superman character who's all powerful, all enduring, he has only one weakness, which is kryptonite, which for some weird reason in the original Supermans from the 70s and 80s, there's kryptonite in all those movies, right? But in these movies, there's hardly any kryptonite. I don't know why. So no one usually uses kryptonite to hurt Superman. I mean, he dies in the last movie, Doomsday, but from the kryptonite. But you don't see a lot of it sprinkled throughout these movies as a thing where people use against Superman. In these movies, he tends to be even in the original version of this, you would have said there was jokes to be made that had they revived Superman initially, the movie would have been 5 minutes long. He'd just kill Steppenwolf in the first 5 minutes. And this movie is like that. Like, to revive Superman for like the first 3 hours is them reviving Superman for him to like do their job in like a minute. But I guess Zack Snyder realized the effects of that, to spend 3 hours doing something to have that person just do it in a minute, where a movie, had they done it with the movie being a minute long. But in this version, I think he uses the team more to say we need everyone to do this task of stopping Steppenwolf. Because Superman was revived and Superman is so powerful in this movie, I wanted to see Darkseid, who's also he's not even an anti-Superman. Darkseid's supposed to be like 1,000 times more powerful than Superman. And you have different versions of Darkseid, and there might be some confusion where you see Darkseid die in one of the flashbacks. And there's no spoilers here, it's not even relevant to the rest of the story. But it should have been noted that Darkseid is so powerful, he has different versions, copies of himself that he makes, and he sends out on missions. So when you encounter Darkseid, it's never really him. The original Darkseid is usually in a temple somewhere on another planet. So the Darkseid that gets killed in a flashback or injured or something like that is not the original Darkseid. So when you see Steppenwolf telling Darkseid that anti-life is kind of he I guess it's something they're looking for. It's the MacGuffin above the MacGuffin. You see Darkseid is very like, oh really? Is that where it is? And I guess a lot of people might be like, oh, but wasn't Darkseid just there and he would have seen it? That wasn't the original Darkseid, and I guess the copy died and then passed information to the original Darkseid. So the original Darkseid never got the location of the thing. So that's just something I wanted to clear up that might have been confusing to people that are not familiar with reading the comics with Darkseid. It's something I picked up that I don't think a lot of casual viewers of this won't pick up. Another thing I'm going to leave it on this is growing up reading comics, there's a beauty in collecting and reading comics as a kid that a lot of adults on these YouTube channels, that pundits that criticize comic book movies, don't know. When you collect comics as a kid, as I did in the 90s, my first job actually was at a comic book store handing out flyers to come in the store and buy comics, and I got paid. I remember I was a hustler back then. I was like 12 or 13. The owner of the shop said, do you want to be paid? I could give you, I think it was something like $5 a day doing it, or $10 a day. Or I could get paid in comic books. I could take like 10 comic books home. So what I ended up doing was taking 10 comic books home and selling it in school to my friends to make more money than he would have paid me. And it also built up a little repertoire with people in my school at the time. So, oh, that's Olaf. He's the cool kid selling comics. He gets all comics. And if it's something they couldn't get, I would get it and sell it twice what the cover value of it was. But the thing of beauty of collecting comics when you're a kid, comic books were like $1.25 when I was a kid. You get like a double issue or special issue was like $3. And when you're a kid, like $3 in the 90s, $3 is like a big deal. Like you saved up your money from your allowance, you went out and you bought the comic, right? And then you came home, it was in plastic. You wait till everyone went to bed, or it's just quiet in your house if you had siblings, and you went to a corner and you just read the comic book. And that was it. You focused on that comic book. The story was so good. And then you tucked it away and you filed it away. And as a kid, you learn kind of how to file things away, stories away, itemize things in order, right? And it was the act of the collecting of the comic books. It was additional to the stories that we got as kids and the artwork that we saw. It was the whole culture of it was fun. Now I think comic books are being replaced with these silly movies, blockbuster movies that make billions of dollars, but there's no fun in it. I just saw Justice League, Zack Snyder cut, right? In a week I would have forgotten about it. I'm not gonna buy the DVD. There's no need to buy DVDs anymore even. So you could stream it anytime. I'm never going to stream 4 hours of that again. My kids probably won't even watch it 20 years from now when they're old enough to watch that. So it gets forgotten about. It gets forgotten and tucked away as more and more movies come out. And it's something that's lost in that culture of comic books and the world of these characters and the stories that's being told. Infinity Wars, my wife loved it. She actually bought the DVDs. They're probably holding up a table in the next room somewhere. That's, we forgot about it. I don't want to watch that again. That was like 4 hours of the same punching and fighting. But when you read the comic books, and this is just me imploring people to go out and read the stories and maybe try to collect comic books. And there's more joy in that, I think, than sitting out for 4 hours and watching like special effects and all that. I think the story of Darkseid, if you get the comic books where he's in, and his origin stories, is 1,000 times more intriguing than 4 hours of Zack Snyder. As good as that was, but I'm just saying the comics, the reading of it, the categorizing it, getting the stories together and lining the books up, it's just so much fun in that. Alright guys, good movie. It's free in HBO Max. Like I said, if you break it up into 4 sections, you have the, it's not really 4 hours. You don't have to watch the post-credit scenes. The post-credit scenes are like 40 minutes. So enjoy, guys. See you guys in the next one.